Please welcome Zack Bodner, President and CEO, Oshman Family JCC.
Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome to Z3 2023. I want to invite you to join me in taking a breath. Let's acknowledge that it's been hard. It hasn't been easy just to do the basic things. So I want to thank you for being here this morning. I want to thank you for getting out of bed, for getting dressed, for brushing your teeth. At least I hope you brushed your teeth. But look around. There are 1,000 people here today. You've shown up. That's a big deal. You've shown up. These are your people. This is your community. This is your family. So my tremendous gratitude for being here today. Look, friends, this is by far the toughest conference for us to plan over the last 9 years. And in part, it's because we had to plan two conferences, frankly. There was the conference we planned before October 7th and the conference we planned in the last 4 weeks. And the one we had before October 7th was pretty great. Judicial reform was the centerpiece. We knew that our community was divided. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to make it a thoughtful conference, and we were pretty darn proud of ourselves. And then the pogrom of October 7th happened, and all that went out the window. And our incredible team had to figure out, how do we make this meaningful? How do we strike the right tone? How do we have incredible speakers knowing so many of our Israelis weren't going to be able to come? And mostly, how do we create a moment of unity and a moment of action in this time? And I'm really glad and really proud of the work the team has done, and I want to thank them. So on the back of your programs, you will see the names of everybody who was involved in this. Turn it over, look at it, see how many people made this conference a reality. You will be the judge by the end of the day of whether it was a success or not. There are 4 people in particular that I want to name, though. 4 people. Because they have been working around the clock. They've been sitting with their own pain and grief and continue to work to make today what it is. So first of all, the architect of this entire thing, the director of the Z3 project, to Amitai Freeman. Incredible job. Second, to the woman who put together the entire conference. This was her baby. She was working nonstop. Maya Yaniv. Maya, wonderful job. Thank you. And to the woman who has led the 4 leadership labs that we will have leading tomorrow. There's a number of people here from all over the world who've come to learn from today and to stay after and spend all day tomorrow figuring out how to bring this back to their communities all over the world. To Dror Stein for putting together our Z3 leadership labs. Thank you. And finally, to the Grande Dame herself, the grandmother of this whole movement, to Ronit Jacobs and the head of the ICC. Yeah. I also want to thank our incredible volunteer base, led by our board chair, Tali Ronen. Thank you, Tali, for all that you do every day. To our board of directors, to this Z3 committee, small but mighty team. You already met Shai Weingarten, and there's Aran Sandhouse and Linda Kurtz. Thank you to the volunteers leading this effort. And finally, I want to thank by name a handful of our sponsors, our partners. Again, everybody who supported this financially listed in the program, but there's a handful of people whose audacious generosity has made this a reality year after year. To the Reinhardt family, to the Rayant family, to the Coombe family, the Weingarten family, the Dianes, the Sauls, the Leslies, and the Fuchsmans. Thank you for all that you do every single day. And last but not least, there are a handful of foundations that have supported us since the beginning. The Toby Foundation, the Corette Foundation, Paul Singer Foundation, Jim Joseph Foundation, and the Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund. Thank you. All right, so here's what I want to do with my time this morning. I want to put today in context for you and get you a little activated as we set up the day. First of all, context. I want you to understand that this is the first conference since October 7th. The first time we're bringing 1,000 people together to have this conversation. There have been rallies. There have been solidarity trips to Israel. There have been countless Zoom calls with experts. But this is the first time we're bringing 1,000 people together in the room. And there's hundreds more, by the way, down on the other side of campus who couldn't fit in here. There's hundreds more on Zoom right now watching this. But we have the left and the right, Republicans and Democrats, Orthodox and secular, Israelis and diaspora Jews. We have everybody in the community here together today to talk about this. This is a big deal. It's an important moment, and I don't want that to go unrecognized. Now, here's what we have in store for you today. There's going to be a little bit of something for all parts of us, body, mind, and soul. We're going to have a little bit of ability to hug each other, to grieve. We're going to have some families here who you will meet who have family members who have been kidnapped. We have a room set up for them on campus. You'll be able to go, give them a hug, offer them whatever support they need. If they get here in time, you'll be able to hear from them on the stage. We're still kind of figuring out what their flight plans are. You're also going to get informed. The first set of breakout sessions are about information. What's going on geostrategically in the Middle East? What's the security situation like? What's going on college campuses? How do you talk to your kids about this stuff? And then the second set of breakouts are going to be all tachlis, action. We want you leaving here with your own to-do list. How do you get involved in political advocacy with the folks from JCRC and AIPAC? How do you deal with social media, right? How do you actually help on campuses? How do you talk to your kids? How do you think about the future and what the future looks like in this dark moment? And then we're going to end the day on a theme of resilience, Jewish and Israeli resilience. And our hope for today is to celebrate our unity and lead everybody in this room to action, inspire you to act. If you don't walk out of here knowing that you have to do something with your to-do list, we won't have succeeded. Because how can you not be motivated in this moment? How can you not act? 1,400 Israelis butchered on October 7th, 240 taken, stolen from their homes, being held in captivity in Gaza. Tens of thousands of Israelis every single day going into bomb shelters because of rockets falling. And hundreds of thousands of young boys and girls in uniform called up to protect the Jewish homeland. If that doesn't inspire you to act, I don't know what does. But friends, this isn't just about Israel. This is Jews around the world. This is a global Jewish peoplehood moment. Did you see what happened in Russia when hundreds stormed the airport wanting to attack Jews who'd arrived on a plane from Tel Aviv? Did you see what happened when the main Turkish newspaper wrote an op-ed calling on the Turkish government to invalidate the citizenship of every single Turkish Jew? How about what happened in Italy when the protesters said, tear down these borders so we can go and kill all the Jews? In Belgium, in England, in Germany, they've actually stopped terrorist attacks from happening against Jewish sites. And in our own country, here in the United States, our kids don't feel safe on college campuses. People are hiding their Jewish stars. They're taking down their mezuzahs. They're changing their names on their Uber accounts so it doesn't sound so Jewish. In New York, Jewish students had to barricade themselves in a library because a mob was after them chanting free Palestine. Who would have thought? Who would have thought in 2023 this is the moment we'd be in? And yet we are. I think many in our community who maybe were asleep have finally figured out anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Death to Israel is death to the Jews. So friends, we have to recognize that all Jews everywhere, we know this, we're all hurting deeply. So this is a moment to come together. This is a moment to help each other. We are better together, more effective together, stronger together. That's the theme of the conference. We are stronger together. This is that moment when we must come together. And we haven't always realized that. We've been talking about that for 9 years at this conference, how this is a Diaspora-Israel bringing the best of ourselves moment together. But let me give you 2 examples of how we can be better when working together. How the old Zionism 2.0 way of thinking is out the window. That way of thinking that we're going to come in and rescue you. We know better, so we're going to ride the white horse in. We in the diaspora are going to rescue Israel. Israel's going to come rescue us. That's old news. That's in the rearview mirror. This is a Zionism 3.0 moment. This is the future moment. I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, think about what happened in the days right after October 7th, when the mainstream American Jewish community got serious, got activated. And what did we do? What do we do well? We raised a ton of money. We know how to do that. And thank God we did. We raised hundreds of millions of dollars, the American Jewish community. We've been doing it for 75 years, actually longer, pre-State of Israel. We know how to do that. But what did the Israeli American community do? They said, wait a second, maybe this big money going through these big institutions, while great, it may not get to them on the ground in time. So the Israelis started buying equipment and chartering planes and sending stuff on the ground to Israel. They started creating Google Docs so that people could sign up to host Israelis who were trying to get back to fighting the IDF and were stuck. They started creating these little funds that can help on the ground in Israel right now. And thank God they did that. A lot of it worked. And also, some of that equipment was the wrong equipment for the soldiers. Some of the equipment got held up in customs. Some of the funds, the little funds on the ground, they couldn't validate where the money was going. So this is a perfect example of how if we work together, we will be better. Israelis helped us think about a new way of doing philanthropy. But American Jews, we know the system. We know the bureaucracy. We've been doing it for generations. We know how it works. We are stronger and better together. The second example I want to give is the political advocacy that started to take place in the days right after October 7th. Our Israelis were shocked at what they saw, not only in Israel, but what's happening here to our children, the anti-Semitism. And the Israelis were angered, they were enraged, and they were a freight train, and there was no stopping them. And they showed up at the city councils and the school boards, and they demanded that our local leaders condemn anti-Semitism, condemn Hamas unequivocally. It was the right instinct. Yeah, absolutely. That Israeli chutzpah put it on the top of the agenda. And yet they couldn't understand why yelling and screaming at our local elected officials didn't work. They were like, don't they know? But these are mostly non-Jewish, uninformed, confused local elected officials. And the American Jewish community has been working for generations, developing the relationships through the organizations like JCRC and AIPAC. They knew how to work the system, the bureaucracy, how to talk diplomatically. So they knew that this fight today is only a setup for the next fight, because the fights aren't going to be over. So you can't burn bridges. So just by yelling and screaming, it isn't always going to get everything done. Another example of how combining Israeli chutzpah with American ingenuity makes us better. That's the moment that we are in. This is the Zionism 3.0. This is the moment of the future. Ever since October 7th, we've said this is a moment to double down and recognize that we have to move forward in this way. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to be equally offensive to everybody. So this is my trigger warning. This is a new thing. I have a daughter on the Columbia University campus. I have a son in high school. I have a daughter who's at Hausner, and I know now you have to say trigger warning, right? So here's my trigger warning. I'm going to offend all of you. You ready? All right, here's the thing. Jews in the diaspora, Jews have always been a minority in the diaspora, always been a minority. Since the beginning of time, Jews have been a minority. So what have we learned how to do living in the diaspora? We've learned how to keep our heads down. We've learned how to blend in. We've learned how to not create waves. And American Jews have been so comfortable here for so many generations that we've lost that sixth sense, that spidey sense that tells us there's danger on the horizon. It's been bred out of us. We've been lulled into complacency, so we didn't see the danger on the horizon. We've become a little too soft. Okay, have I offended half the audience yet? Now here's the other side. Israelis. Okay, here's the deal. Israelis live in the toughest neighborhood in the world. For them to survive, they've had to be aggressive, they've had to be tough, they've had to have sharp elbows, and thank God, they would not survive in the toughest neighborhood of the world, but for their sharp elbows. And when the Israelis come here, sometimes that assertiveness doesn't always serve their purposes as well as they'd like. Is that a fair way of saying it? Okay. And by the way, I know this personally. Most of you who know me know I married into an Israeli family. It took me a couple of years to develop the chutzpah to finally say to my wife, Ronit, why is your family always yelling at each other? She's like, I don't know what you mean. That's just how they talk. Okay? So here's my thesis. Let's take the best from Israeli chutzpah and aggressiveness. And maybe they're a little up here, and let's take the American know-how and maybe the lack of aggressiveness, and let's find a good middle ground, shall we? Shall we find that equilibrium where we take the best from each world? That's what it means. That's the future. That's what we have to do in this moment. That's truly making 1 + 1 = 3. 3.0, Zionism 3.0. Right? That's how we do this. That's what we're here to do today. All right, so I'm going to end with this. Get this show on the road today. Tomorrow, 30 days will have passed since October 7th. That's the end of the Shloshim period, for those of you who are religious and understand. Now, there are many in our community who are still grieving, who can't move past Shloshim because they don't know where their loved ones are. They don't have closure in that way. But for those of us for whom we can recognize the Shloshim period has ended, we have to turn our grieving into action. We must stand there for those community members who are still in limbo. We must be there for the boys and girls in uniform in Israel. We must stand up and act. This is our moment. This is our miluim. This is our reserve service. So when you leave here today, take it on yourselves to do something to help. Thank you for being here today. Let's have a great day.